Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing very well. So today's video is going to be slightly different than my other types of content. I'm going to be doing kind of like a paint with me throughout the week. Basically I have got a commission to complete and it is a dog portrait. So I thought that to kind of switch up the content a bit, I would show you how all of the process. It is a oil painting and I haven't done an oil painting for a really long time, so I'm going to be completing the portrait for my dad. It's for his friend, so I'm going to basically take you through the process of starting the sketch and then the first few layers of the paint, and then yeah, it's just going to kind of be another cozy vlog. This time not crochet though, it is going to be painting. I'm really excited to get started on this project, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you'd like to see more content like this, and if you'd like to see me do more paintings on like my YouTube videos, then comment down below. So let's get into it. Okay, so here is my setup. I basically just got my easel on the table and I chose a 12 by 10 inch canvas, and this is going to be the picture that I'm using as a reference. So basically what I've done is I've printed out the picture and then I did a tracing on the back against like a window. The tracing pencil lines are actually on the other side of the picture, so that when I then sketch around all of the main components, it should hopefully show up on the other side, because there's obviously the pencil markings on the other side and it hopefully like mark it on the canvas. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to go around all the main important bits with my pencil, and then hopefully it should kind of print it onto the canvas now. Okay, so I'm not sure if the camera was picking up the tracing, but the tracing has actually come back better than I thought it would. I'm just going to kind of show you up close. You can see the dog's shape. I really only needed like the proportions for the kind of background and then the middle ground and then the foreground. Like all of it just needed to be a little bit more precise. That's why I used the tracing aspect. So now I'm just going to kind of create a little bit more detail where the tracing didn't really pick up, just so that I have a little bit more or guidance of where everything is going to go. Okay, so now I'm just going to prepare all of my paints now that the sketch is all done, and I might, depending on how I feel, I might do a underpainting part where I basically just paint the entire portrait in like a bright colour that contrasts with the colour that I am actually going to be using, so mostly like greens and neutral browns and then black. And this helps the picture to come out more vibrant because the colour underneath is a direct contrast. I'm just going to get my other colours ready first. So I've got these De La Roni oil paints, so I'm just going to kind of open these up. Okay, so I have all of my colours all out on my palette, and I've decided that I'm going to do a kind of pink underpainting background because the majority of the colours I'm going to be using are green earthy tones, so if I use a bright pink then that's going to contrast with that nicely and hopefully give the painting a more brighter look once it's done. And it also just helps me visually, like with understanding where everything is. When it's like a lot of white space, sometimes it's a bit more difficult to see where to put everything. So I've just done a pretty basic sketch of all of the traced lines that I've done with some dark brown oil paint, and this has gone on top of the underpainting colour, and now I'm kind of ready to just start painting. So I think I'm just going to be starting from top to bottom, since I don't really want to like get any transferred paint like from the bottom to the top. If I start at the bottom, then I'm going to have a higher chance when I'm doing the top of kind of smudging it. So I think I'm going to start with the sky at the top, which is kind of more of a grey sky with kind of more blue undertones. So I think I'm just going to start with the shape right here at the top. So here's where kind of the trees are, and that will be kind of the next step after that. But yeah, I'm going to start off with this kind of grey cloudy sky up here and then just work down. So it is now day 3. I'm going to be basically now working on the main bulk of the painting. So I'm going to be filling in all of the spaces that I've marked out with more detail and more blending. And kind of the final steps of this painting is going to be the really tiny details, so like the grass detail, the flowers, the leaf texture, and then after that it will be the edges of the painting as well. So basically I'm just going to keep going with the main part, which is just basically blocking out more colours, creating more contrast, you know, shadows and highlights, that sort of thing. So I'm going to get on with that now, and the final kind of section of this painting I'm going to leave to the last minute because it's going to be mostly black and dark blue paint, and I don't want that to interfere with any of the grass and make it kind of look muddy. So yeah, I'm going to start that now and I'm going to give you an update sort of maybe halfway through. Okay, so it is now day 4. I've got quite a bit done, but it is still definitely, it's getting to that point now where the paint on the canvas is getting quite oily and quite thick, which means that the more I'm adding, the longer it's taking for it to dry, because it's already got the layers underneath that needs to dry, and then I'm adding on top of it each day. So I'm literally only able to paint for like a couple of hours at a time, just to make sure that the bases of the paint isn't getting too creamy and like too difficult to work with, because sometimes they just end up like blending together into this like muddy mush of a colour. So at the moment I have done quite a bit of detail up in the top left corner, but as far as everything else, I've just basically been doing layers of the basic like background colour of like the grass, and then I'm going to go in over the top with like more detail and more like contrasting colours. And I also did do a bit more of like the kind of dirt sandy path as well. So I am making good progress, but yeah, it's just a bit difficult because sometimes I'm like more motivated to keep going and the paint is like not cooperating at all, and that just means that I basically need to use probably less oil when I'm mixing the paint. So yeah, I'm just gonna carry on and kind of give you an update after I've finished for today. Okay, so it is now technically day 4. I did take a couple of days off just for the Easter weekend, and I ended up basically doing like a second sort of more of a base layer for the grass, and then I did sort of a bit more of a detailed layer across this sort of bush tree area here, and then I added more detail here. So I'm kind of just building layer upon layer, but like I said in the previous clips, like it gets to a point where the oil paint is just getting too thick and it won't really start to layer anymore. They just sort of start to mix within each other, especially if the layer underneath is too wet. So that's why I took a couple of days off, just so that everything that I've got here had time to soak in. And obviously it is still wet paint, but it's nowhere near as wet as it was when I finished painting it on Thursday. Now I'm just basically going to continue as I was. I'm going to continue to add more detail over here, since this is starting to dry down now, over here, and then I will be adding more detailed layers on the grass section here. And I think I'm just going to leave this area here for the time being and work on that a little bit later on, because I really want to get everything up at the top finished, so that I don't really have to keep like moving my hand up and possibly like dragging the paint down over here. I want to get everything up here done. So yeah, I'm just basically carrying on now. I'm going to spend a couple of hours doing all of that. I'm going to give you an update on how it looks at the end. it is now day 5 or day 6, I've lost track, but I've got quite a bit done. So far I have pretty much done all of the bushes, the grass, the floor detail, and now I'm really just mapping out the space of the dog, the actual dog, the shape of the body, and also the shadows, just getting the shadows right and mapping that out before I actually start to add more detail. I did the main part of the dog yesterday, which you guys saw, and then I left it because I wanted again to let that layer soak in a bit more. And now today I'm just going to basically be carrying on layering over that, and then I'm also going to be mapping out like the facial details, because I think that's going to be the hardest part of this painting, is making sure that all the face proportions are right. Even though I did do a sketch for it, I kind of decided to just map out the more accurate shape when I was actually physically painting it rather than drawing on it. The eyes are like very dark eyes, so even if I did make a mistake, it can kind of easily be covered or wiped away, versus if the eyes were like very white and maybe blue, that might be a bit more difficult if I did make a mistake. But because they are kind of more on the darker grey side and there's the shadow obviously is there, then I kind of have a bit more confidence to just go straight in with the eye and map out the shape. But basically with my process for the actual dog, I like to just map out and block out all of the main colours, and then I kind of go over it the next day with more detail, and as the days go on I just add more and more detail, and then like the fur, the tiny like fur hairs kind of come last. After I've mapped out most of the shape of the dog and then added more detail onto that, I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to focus on any gaps I haven't filled in yet, any like of those pink gaps, especially around like the dog's feet. And then I'm also going to be focusing on the side edges and the top edge. I'm leaving the bottom edge to literally the last step of the painting, and that's because I need to make sure that the side edges and the top are fully dry before I even touch the bottom, because I need to pick up the canvas. So it's kind of like a lot of what to kind of try and work out each step carefully so that everything can be done in the right order. It's difficult with oil paint because it takes a long time to dry, and it's okay if you kind of touch on the painting day by day, but by the time you have finished, it's going to take a couple more weeks to dry before you can varnish it. So yeah, I'm just going to keep going, and I'll give you a little update after I've mapped out all of the face, and yeah. Okay, so we are now on, I think, day 6 or day 7, I can't remember, but basically this was kind of what I got to in the previous clip. I worked on it for maybe like an hour, and then the paint got very wet again, so I decided to just leave it for a whole day. So after that day I left it a whole 24 hours before I am now gonna carry on today. Just to let everything sink in a little bit more. It's still definitely a little bit wet around here, but that's okay. And so I'm basically now, I've kind of blocked and mapped out all of the main colours and got a little bit more detail around the face, and now I'm just going to basically make a second layer of that before the final kind of layer, which is going to be like the fine details like the hairs, the teeth, all of those small highlights. And this is kind of just more about the proportions and mapping out the shadows and highlights. As you can see here, I did do this kind of white grey stripe, but it did get a little bit, like when I layered the white yarn, when I layered the white paint on the chest, because there was black paint underneath it that was still slightly wet, it started to get a little bit like muddy and grey, so I left it as it was, as its own individual layer. And then when I go over it, hopefully the white will come out a lot more clearer because there's already like a white layer underneath it. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, I'm just going to carry on to the dog. I'll do a little time lapse for you, and then I'll kind of show you after that's all done what it's looking like. Little update, it's been maybe like an hour and a half, and I don't know what happened, but I completely ruined the face. Like I feel like the face before was not too bad, and then I started adding more details. The paint got very like wet and slippery, and it just started to smush into one dark grey colour, so I kind of had to just paint over all of it and then mark out the details again with dark paint. And so now I've got a very dark face, and all of those highlights that I did have before have kind of disappeared because I completely ruined the face details. And then I ended up kind of something like this, and I also ruined the mouth details as well. And then I started adding the highlights back in, and it started getting like mushy and slippery and a muddy colour, so I have to leave it at that and not touch it anymore. Otherwise it's gonna get like it's just gonna get even worse. So I am now on, I think I'm on day 8. I've kind of lost track of time at this point, but I am really close to finishing this painting now. I just really need to clean up the edges around the feet and kind of around the neck. I also made a little mistake around the tail, so what I did was I kind of repositioned the tail to go in this direction, and then because I done that when the paint was a little bit wet, it did smudge it and make it a little bit grey around the edges. I've left it a few days to dry now, so now I can kind of start to cover that up and make the green a lot more vibrant. And then I just have a little bit on the side here to finish, and then after that I'm going to be doing the whole bottom part, and I'm going to be like laying that flat so that I can actually get to that, and then I will be laying the painting flat to let it dry, and I'm just going to add a few more details I think on the body, but that's pretty much it. It's really just cleaning up the edges, doing the sides, doing a bit more fur detail, and then yeah, we're all done. Okay, so it has now been about 3 weeks since I finished the painting. I'm now going to varnish it. It has probably taken maybe like 2 weeks to dry, but I just wanted to give it an extra week just to be sure, and I just lightly wiped over it with some tissue, and then it was literally nothing came off the tissue, so Now I know that it's definitely dry. I'm not sure how long it's going to take to dry after the varnish has been applied, maybe a couple of days, maybe a week, because sometimes it can get a bit sticky. So what I'm going to do is probably give it another sort of 3 to 5 days just to be sure. I'm using this Winsor & Newton gloss varnish. This is for oil paints, and then I've just got this like flat fluffy brush, and I'm pretty sure this is just, you're able to clean this with water, and if it doesn't come off as easy, I'll probably use a little bit of soap with that as well, warm water and soap. So what I like to do is I like to just pour a little bit in the middle, and then I just spread it all around, and I'm going to spread it around the edges too, and I'm not going to even touch the canvas because obviously the edges are going to be sticky. So I'm going to just try and kind of do it in one go, and hopefully the canvas won't move too much. I'm just going to put some stuff around the edges to make sure that the towel is secure. So I'm just going to pour maybe like a tablespoon roughly, like that. As you can see, like as soon as you put the varnish on it, everything just becomes nice and clear. So I'm just going to kind of wipe it back and forth, working from the middle to the outside. So that is the end of this cozy painting vlog. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you'd like to see me do more painting videos, then I would definitely do that because I had a lot of fun doing something a little bit different, and I haven't painted for a while, so it's nice to kind of switch up a bit. So yeah, that's all from me today, and if you enjoyed, then please consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up, and if you have any suggestions of what you'd like me to make next, then feel free to leave them in the comments below. I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.